Hi guys, welcome to my vlog. So for today's video, I'm going to interview English teachers in Medellin Central School and Medellin National High School. So let's go. In terms of teaching grammar, which approach do you prefer? Teacher-centered or learner-centered, and why?
It is not merely only on the learners and learner-centered, no, there is also a teacher-centered. So it is a combination, but more on the learner-centered approach, in which I give more activities to them to engage more in the learning process as application of the lessons that we have.
When choosing the materials, do you consider your students' different needs and learning styles?
So, of course, I will consider my students' needs as long as it can enhance more learnings and make my teaching effective.
How do you balance teacher and learner-centered approaches when adapting materials for different types of students or learning goals?
So in this situation, I use differentiated instruction. Differentiated instruction strategies in order to accommodate different learning styles and needs in the classroom. Like for example, flexible grouping in which they can choose which group they will be grouped, you know? And then small groups, there are also small groups in which contains only 3 or 4 students. Then nasa big groups na kanang sila daghan sila ba nag-share sila ng answers nga nasa pair and share. So I think you're familiar with that. So the use of variety of instruction materials.
In terms of teaching grammar, which approach do you prefer more in your teaching? Teacher-centered or learner-centered, and why?
I prefer learner-centered because in learner-centered approach, students are actively engaged. They can explore, they can collaborate with each other, and it would make them easily remember the lessons rather than just receiving passive information from the teacher.
When choosing the materials, do you consider your students' different needs and learning styles?
Yes, actually we have to consider the different learning styles and needs of students in choosing materials so that they can better absorb the information that we will be giving them. For example, if the students are good in, like, let's say for example, they're visual learners, then maybe we can cater our materials to maybe visual presentation, video or media information.
How do you balance teacher and learner-centered approaches when adapting materials for different types of students or learning goals?
I think the best way to balance is to get to know the learners first and then design activities and approaches that's catered to them or to their specific needs. Because sometimes we have to use the two approaches, the teacher-centered and the learner-centered, because it will make a better engaging lessons for the students.
In terms of teaching grammar, which approach do you prefer, teacher-centered or learner-centered, and why?
For the preference, I would prefer a combination of the two. It's either teacher-based or teacher-centered or learner-centered. There are classes that students are capable to, say for example, for reporting, they are capable to discuss a certain content. So that is why in that class, for example, I prefer a teacher-centered, learner-centered approach. But for those classes that there are a lot of students that are struggling, then I would prefer a teacher-centered approach.
When choosing the materials, do you consider your students' different needs and learning styles?
Absolutely, yes. I need to consider that because, with the multiple intelligences, the different learning styles of the students, we really need to make sure that we can maximize the capabilities of the students. So I also need to get diverse diverse strategies so that student or the instructions that I'll be giving will be at par of the level of understanding of each student.
How do you balance teacher-centered and learner-centered approaches when adapting materials for different types of students or learning goals?
Actually, for the materials, DepEd has already set the standard, and they also have prepared modules for that. So, in my case, how I balance it is that I will base it according to the level of understanding of the students. So, yeah, that's it.
So that's all, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.